Yeah, it's that time of year again. I have to talk about the Halloween movie. Um, a lot of people do. They talk about this film this time of year. Uh, and my thoughts on it and the sequels, particularly. Um, has a killer theme song. That's what's great about it. About a killer. Yeah, this clown here. Not the original mask from the first movie, by the way. Um, I don't think that's even the mold of the old Shatner mask. Yeah, it's not even molded from that. They used a Captain Kirk mask for the first Michael Myers mask. And but the first movie's great because it's simple. It wasn't intended to be a great film, and it found its audience sort of on its own. And it because back when they released the first Halloween movie in 1978, the movie had to work its way around the country. There were only so many reels, so it played, in theaters in one part of the country, and then went to the Midwest, and then went out west, or whichever way it went. So people gradually discovered it, and it was given pretty, initially terrible reviews until I don't know if it was Rod Ebert who saw it and actually said something good about it. I believe it was. So it just became a pretty popular movie. It spawned numerous awful sequels, and the first sequel, HalloweenH2NO, which took place the same night when Laurie Strode was at the hospital and all of that, isn't considered such a great film. And it probably kind of didn't need to be made because it's just the first movie, kind of left you on, it was sort of a cliffhanger after Michael Myers went out the window. And then they looked in the yard again, Dr. Loomis, and he was gone, after he put like 7 freaking bullets in him or something. But the first movie, it was basically, how there wasn't really any throwaway scenes. It built suspense. It was pretty. You didn't really know why Michael Myers was really killing people. It was just something he did. He was just a sociopath, and he seemed to only have the ability to kill people when he was wearing a mask. And that it was sort of you gathered that from the beginning of the film when he killed his sister. He had to put the clown mask on, and when he went back to Haddonfield, as I think he was 23 at that point. He went and got that mask from the hardware store, and one that looks a lot like that kind of. But he began going about killing teenagers that were just up to no good, up to hijinks. Except for Laurie Strode, who was, as we can see in this film, this is where he goes and kills his sister for getting into hanky-panky with her boyfriend, I guess. But to talk about these movies in terms of these sequels, that I pretty much ruined it, and the reboots and everything. This HalloweenH2NO, it was acceptable in terms like, okay, they made a sequel. It wasn't. What was the guy gonna do if he after that? Of course, he was gonna go hunt Laurie down at the hospital and everything, and of course at the end, Michael Myers, gets blown up and burns to death. Thanks to Dr. Loomis. And then they make Season of the Witch, which has nothing to do with Michael Myers or anything, because they were going to turn it into an anthology series. And I'm not really going to go into talking about it. And it's an interesting movie. I would suggest seeing it if you're a fan of the Halloween movies or horror films. It's kind of an interesting premise. I watched it like about a year ago, and I never really watched it. It was just one of those movies I never got around to watching, and over the years. So it's just a really crazy, weird twisted kind of plot. It's different. So when that didn't do well, and people like, look, this is what we liked about Halloween. We want to see Michael Myers. So it was, I think, I don't know if it was the return of Michael Myers Halloween 4, and honestly, I don't even remember the plot of that one exactly, because I've seen all these movies, but I just haven't seen them all in a while. But they made 4, 5, and I think 6. There we go. Hacking up her sister. Why are you stabbing me? You didn't exhibit any of this behavior before today. You were totally a sweet kid, and now you're stabbing me? So, yeah, hence it's a slasher movie. It doesn't really make any sense. But when they made those movies, the plot of I think it was 5 and 6 had to do with Jamie Lloyd. I think that was her name was, and she was supposedly Laurie Strode's daughter, and Laurie Strode was dead, and Michael Myers was going after her because Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister. So there's those 2 movies, or those, I guess, 3 films, which aren't regarded as very good films because they're kind of, they're sequels. They're like Friday the 13th sequels. That's what it would make money if they put it out. It doesn't really have to be that good. I'm not saying they weren't trying to make them good, but it's just, how many different, if he keeps coming back to the same town every Halloween, how do you keep making this new? If he keeps coming back to Haddonfield, and you think these people would sort of catch on, like, oh shit, this serial killer is going to come back to our town on Halloween, and you think they would be a little wiser. They can't seem to deal with one guy with a kitchen knife who wears a white mask. Obviously he's not hard to spot but they made those movies, and then they made H2O, which was to repudiate everything that happened after, I believe, Halloween 2. And Laurie Strode, played by, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, is like a head mistress, or whatever they call it, headmaster of a private school in California, all the way out in California. And she changed her name, and she's with her son, played by Josh Hartnett. And they made this movie. It was called H2O because it was 20 years later. It was in 1998, and it sucked. And here's what I think should have been done with all these movies, and they should have been over a long time ago, because they're coming out with yet another Halloween movie, and it's supposed to come out next year. And Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be in it. Because after H2O, which I will not go into because it's not really a good movie, after H2O, basically at the end, Jamie Lee Curtis cuts off Michael Myers' head with an axe. And it was pretty well established, this is Michael Myers, And it seemed, well, maybe that's the only way he can be killed is that his sister cuts his head off. I don't know, like a vampire with a stake, or a werewolf with a silver bullet. You cut fucking Michael Myers' head off. And it seemed like that's an ending, at least. Just let that end. No, they couldn't. Because they went and made that awful movie, Halloween, was it Resurrection, with Busta fucking Rhymes. To put Michael Myers face to face with Busta Rhymes was like, had to be, kids, and that's kind of, I will put in a way that is the last of the original film, the original run of films. Even though the canon is, they're pretty loose with it. So they made this movie. Basically, it was like a reality show, and it was like a bunch of college students put in the house with like little cameras and stuff like that, headsets, and at the old Myers house. And of course, Michael comes back to just, murder them all, because of course that's going to happen. And you think that would happen because it's been established that this happens You know what I mean? He keeps coming the fuck back because he just came back from California to go after Laurie Strode. And at the beginning, Jamie Lee Curtis gets killed off in a mental institution he's at because she didn't actually kill Michael Myers. Michael Myers put a paramedic in his place in the back of the van that she took off of at the end of H2O, which if you see the movie, that's what happens. And it's shit. So after Resurrection, and at the end, Michael Myers doesn't really die at the end of that. And I'm not even going the whole movie. It sucked. And then they made the Rob Zombie reboots, and those were the first one I saw in theaters. Me and a friend went to go see it, and it was like, yeah, it's okay. I'll watch it. It wasn't really abominable or anything like that. It was just a reworking of the first movie is what it was, and a Rob Zombie sort of twist on it and everything. You got more insight into Michael Myers growing up. His mom was a stripper. His stepdad was a piece of shit. His sister was kind of the, sort of a, crude and, foul-mouthed and slutty. It was all this sort of, stuff. So he was just screwed up from this, kind of. And, you get what he sort of talks as a kid, so you have that, and, instead of him being silent. I think he says something, and he says, die in the second Rob Zombie Halloween movie, where I think part of the movie, he doesn't have the fucking mask on. He's got, like, the long hair, and he's, like, 9 feet tall. So, those movies were made, and, okay, whatever, no big deal. And that was pretty much, it. And now they're making this movie, which is supposedly supposed to take place after the first movie. It's not even acknowledging Halloween 2, I guess. I don't fucking know. It really doesn't matter. And the thing about this, though, that annoys me is, like, you can't ignore all those movies, though. You made them. I think the franchise has to own those movies to some extent, because it's just they're out there. Michael Myers still did all that shit in movies. So I don't, as awful as they are, I think you have to kind of own them to some extent. I mean, you keep trying to, like, save what was good about the first movie, which you really can't do, because basically it was in part kind of a happy accident. Things just seemed to come together on a low-budget horror movie, and it makes a lot of, it goes on to gross a lot of money and gets rediscovered by, younger audiences in the future. And that's a cool thing. You have that, and I think that's what the movies, Halloween is always going to be, the first one. But the subsequent ones were always terrible. I mean, when I went to go back to the theaters to see these movies when I was like Halloween 4, 5, and 6, when I was in, like, my early teens, I knew they were horrible, but I wanted to go see another Halloween movie, like most of the fans. And I knew this was just, this is so bad. I mean, it's like, it's the same shit, and they would bring back, Donald Pleasance would come back to do it. He had the burn scar on the side of his face, and I don't think he was super happy to be there. I would rather make Halloween movies and do my job, but, as a distinguished older actor, I'm sure he wasn't, this is exactly what he wanted to be doing. I think these movies were just made to make a buck, they weren't like, it was just, and it's the thing that happens with movies. They just come in and they just get a lot of people with stupid fucking ideas and what they should do, and they fucking ruin it. When they shouldn't have been making these damn movies in the first place. They could have just, made, the first Halloween movie, maybe the second one, and maybe in the late 80s, around maybe 1988 or maybe 1990 at the latest, make, like, a third one with, like, Laurie Strode and with Jamie Lee Curtis, and they could have, tied the whole thing up, rather than make, like, how many movies, I'm not even sure exactly how many movies there are. There's probably, like, 9 at this point. I'm not sure if that includes the Rob Zombie movies. And the new one coming up, it's just going to be a big sort of Hollywood send-up because Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be in it. And that was what H2O was, and it sucked. It was boring. It took place in California at some private school. You know, I mean, he just killed a couple of kids and went after Laurie Strode. I think he killed her boyfriend or something, you know. And it's just and it didn't make any sense either, because like, oh, he just decides to show up now. It took him 20 years to find her. I mean, it just seems stupid. Like, so that sucked. So they're making this movie. It's like they just can't get it fucking right. They keep trying to, like, it's like they're trying to get their grandmother's recipe, you know, and she died. And they're trying to get some whatever it was, or lasagna, or her whatever she made that was awesome, and they can't get it fucking right. They don't have all the right ingredients. It just seems to be the same thing over and over again with these films. I mean, it's with a lot of horror films, but with the case of Halloween, the first one's a good movie. And they just can't redo it, and they just can't let it go. It's like, when we know there's a buck in this, and we know there's money to be made, there's a big payday. If we put, you know, we'll get Jamie Lee Curtis in it, and maybe we'll get some other original actor, the original actor that played Tommy Doyle, or the kid and the girl that the two kids he was babysitting, and they'll all like fight Michael Myers or whatever. And they brought back some of those characters before with other actors playing them. Even Paul Rudd played Tommy Doyle in I think Halloween 6. Strangely enough, it's an odd performance. It's very uncomedic. Well, actually, it's actually pretty fucking funny, him playing it. But there we go. He's by the schoolyard. Like, I have this playing in the background. That's distracting as fuck. But that's the thing with this movie. See, it built suspense. You didn't even see his face. Well, his masked face. They sort of just shot him from below the neck, and it built suspense. Like when he came from, later when he comes from the other side of the hedge. You know, when Laurie and her friend are walking down the street, and they use the music appropriately and everything like that, and that's what made the first movie good. And this is why and I think when they do make this new movie, they are just going to lift a lot of this. A lot of this is they're just going to put it in there. And I guess if they're going to make it again, they may as well, so people can just see something they're familiar with and that they'll like, versus just trying to either change it too much. But the thing is, it's just basically going to be probably, for the most part, kind of a rip-off on the first one. So, Haddonfield's 73 miles away. This is where Dr. Loomis finds the tow truck, and that's where Michael Myers gets the coveralls from the driver of the tow truck. So that's where the coveralls come from. And he gets the mask from the hardware store, and I guess he gets the knife from he gets a couple of knives. I don't know if he just has the same knife the whole movie. But well, he looks pretty young there too. So that's not a tow truck, it's a pickup truck. I'm mistaken. See, I don't even remember little details like that. But Dr. Loomis doesn't notice there's a body in the bushes there. Yep, Phelps' garage. And he finds the matchbook cover. It's like the red, I don't know what it's called. We'll see it here. It's the Rabbit and Red Lounge. I was going to say the Red Rabbit Inn. The Rabbit and Red Lounge. So anyway, yep, and see, there's a dead body right there. The hell? Dr. Loomis is like the worst child psychologist ever. He just really fucked up with Mike Myers. That's all I gotta say. But that's my thoughts on Halloween and what they're doing with it. As far as if you want to see a good Halloween movie, watch this one and don't watch any of the other ones. That's really the other movies. I mean, they're actually. I mean, watch them. They're kind of funny and stupid and all that. But they're not real. They're not satisfying movies or anything like that, like the original. And I doubt this new movie that's coming out next year, Jamie Lee Curtis being in it, isn't going to make it a good flick or anything. I might be wrong. I stand corrected if they actually pull off some kind of fucking miracle and just not make a derivative film. But yeah, that is my take on Halloween. If you have any thoughts on that, you can insult me in the comment section. That's what it's for. Enjoy your Halloween season. Be safe. It's hard to be safe anymore with all the fucking guns floating around this country, but, I don't mean to be political, but it's hard to ignore that shit. I wish that's all we had to worry about was some weirdo in a mask with a fucking butcher knife. I mean, shit, So anyway, have a happy Halloween, and later.